What is happening, guys? Hope everybody's doing well. It is a beautiful day. Been off the YouTube for like 10 days or so I didn't give you guys a video last week. It was busy with the holidays, but I kind of wanted to, first of all, let you guys know that I'm dropping an ebook in the next probably month. That's the plan. Hopefully within the next 2 weeks, because I do have some time off from work in the next few weeks. So hoping to have it done by the end of December. That's the plan, but it's going to be about how to build a perfect workout routine. So I talked about this in a previous video. I've been working on a few projects. So there's the main novel that I have, and then this one, which the main novel that I began writing, I took some time off. I haven't worked on it in about a month and a half because I stumbled upon a couple crazy things. Basically, the plot I found out is very similar to an actual really famous story, and a lot of the characters have the same names, and I had no idea. So I got to like go through and change all that. Unfortunately, I'm really upset about it, but in the meantime, I've been working on this project while I try to figure out what I'm going to do with that. And the program is very individualistic. It's going to be cheap as hell, so you don't have to, if you guys are interested in it. I do have a bunch of videos on building workout routines and things that I've tried that I really like, but I think this is perfect if you're looking to build a routine from scratch, learning all the basics. And there's going to be a nutrition component too. It's not going to be as in-depth because I'm going to write a separate book, I think, about nutrition. But it's going to be probably around 100 pages, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter. I'm going to have diagrams and all kinds of stuff. It's been crazy, and I've been putting in a lot of work toward it. So I wanted to let you guys know that that's going to be dropping really soon, and I'm excited for it. So it goes through everything from workout splits to exercise selection, adherence, cardio, like I said, nutrition. So it's going to be great, and I really look forward to dropping that. It's going to be an ebook. I think I'm going to have a paperback as well. I got to work things out with the printer and everything, but I'm really excited for that. It's going to be great. So I guess that was my main announcement. And I guess I just kind of wanted to elaborate on that because there's kind of, over the years, things progress, and I stay up to date with a lot of the research, and it's just hard because there's so many different things coming out in so many different areas, from exercise science to nutrition to exercise physiology, and the studies are constantly changing. And it's hard because you learn one thing growing up, and like when I was in school for dietetics, it was like 2013 through 2015, 2016, and then into 2017, and since then it's almost 2020. So a lot of those, I guess, findings have changed. And even look in the last like 2 decades or so, everybody was saying that fat is evil, you can't eat saturated fat, it's terrible for you, it's going to cause heart disease. Come to find out, it's actually sugar that's the problem in most cases. And the studies on cancer with red meat is so scanty, and that's the thing with a lot of these studies. They're correlational studies. So I talked about this before with red meat causing cancer. So they found like higher rates of cancer with people that ate red meat more frequently, but they didn't factor in lifestyles and the differences between populations. So for example, it turns out that like African Americans, for example, are higher, and they have a higher likelihood for heart disease, as well as like, I believe, diabetes and reticular, there's cataracts and something else like reticular degeneration, I think it is, something like that, or macular degeneration. And so you can't really compare, as well as when you factor in the lifestyles. So the people that smoke, they're going to have higher rates of cancer. People that don't exercise as much, they're going to have a higher rate of cancer, simply because like inflammation causes a lot of problems that tend to lead to severe illness in general. So I mean, it's disingenuous to say that red meat causes cancer, but that's what people gather from the study. There is a correlation, but there's so many other factors. So the studies are really rubbish, and it comes to find out most of those studies that they use for saying that red meat's bad, or like you should eat a high protein diet, you shouldn't eat a meat diet, a lot of it's backed by like these high sugar companies, and there's a bunch of them too against like artificial sweeteners, which is really interesting because they're a competitor. So what they're trying to do is essentially, in a way, manipulate the market, and I know they're boosting their sales, and it's disingenuous because people don't know how to read studies. And I found this because just things on like Facebook and social media. One headline that grabbed my attention back in, this was 2016. I remember it to this day. It was in the summer of 2016, and it said, Red Bull has the same effects in the brain as cocaine. And you think that, you're like, what? And I drink a lot of Red Bull, and there's been times in years past where I did cocaine, and it's nothing even close. It's nothing even close. So that right there, if you've had Red Bull, it's really not that strong. Like, I think a 12-ounce Red Bull has like 80 milligrams of caffeine or something like that. A 16 has like 100, which is like a cup of coffee, and that's in a 16-ounce beverage. So like, think of this, half of this completely filled to the brim has like 100 milligrams of caffeine. That's nothing. And like, there's been times where I drank 6 Bang energy drinks. That's 2,400, it's 1,800 milligrams of caffeine plus pre-workout, which I remember to this day I was using Bullnox Angel Rush, which was 240 milligrams of caffeine, something like that, as well as like coffee and random stuff. And I was doing this for prolonged periods of time. That's over 2 grams of caffeine. That's a lot of coffee. That's, if you were to equate that to coffee, that would be like 23, 24 cups of coffee. And so, you know, it's the titles and the headlines, and that's what gets clicks. And it's like, outrage generates interest in videos, and that's how you get ratings. But it's so frustrating. And so I guess what I'm trying to get at with all this is like, the research changes and staying up to date is very difficult. And that's something that I've tried to keep in mind when I'm doing this book, is because I want to use studies from 2008, and I'm like, can't use those. I don't want to go below 2010. So all my studies that I use in this, because I link them right in there, and I have a citation page, so if you want to go look up the studies, you can. Those are all 2010 or higher. I try to make them as most recent. There's some really good ones from 2018 that I used. So just, I want to say learn to read research. It's easier said than done, because I know once you get into like the stats and when you start discussing standard deviations or like p-values, it gets to be confusing. But how else? You can't trust people's interpretations of studies. Everybody can read the study and you can interpret the study a different way. But at the end of the day, you know, if you see something that doesn't really seem to make much sense, it just might. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And, you know, another thing, I guess, to kind of ramble off, I'm kind of going in a million different directions right now, because this wasn't really, I didn't really play in this video. I just kind of like was thinking about it. I wanted to announce the website. But when you're looking at studies, you have to look at the sample size. And that's so important, because if you have a research study of 5 individuals, you're not really, there's going to be a lot of variance in those. Sure, they might trend in the same way depending on what you're studying, but that's not really that reliable. When you take population-wide studies, or population-wide, whether it's regarding like that area or if it's like population in terms of global population, that's the best way to do it. And that's where a lot of these studies seem to be the most beneficial. I've seen studies, there was one that I was just doing for an article, and it was talking about, it was a study based on how women are binge drinking at higher rates ever. It's doubled since 2016, I believe. The amount of binge drinking in females ages 30 to 44 has doubled since 2016. And I was looking at the study, and they did, yes, it was a self-reported study through survey. It was a lengthy survey, but it was like 244,000 people. And I'm like, that's like a sample of the population. And so it was across the entire United States. So you know that it's not from one specific area. Like if that was from specifically Las Vegas or Miami, you could say, okay, those tend to be higher partier areas. So maybe we need to either change the design of the study, or maybe not lean so heavily on the results. But this was a global country, nationwide study. So I don't know. So when it's things like that, I think, you know, I had a teacher actually in grad school, a research grad school professor, and she was very intelligent. She had like 2 PhDs, but she said that sample size, she essentially said sample size doesn't matter. And she cited this study about, it was a physiological study. Can't remember what it was about. It was for like exercise science or exercise phys. And the sample size was 3. And I questioned her on that. I was like, you can't actually use that. She's like, yeah, you can. Like it. She like gave the crappiest explanation. I'm like, how can you use a sample size of 3 to validate a claim or to test a hypothesis? I don't understand. And it wasn't a good study at all. And I think she knew that, and I think the whole class knew that, and she didn't like me calling it out. But that's the important thing, is you can't just be, if that were the case, I could just do a sample size of 1, and then whatever my self-reported is, like I could just say the average BMI amongst 24-year-old males is whatever mine is. You know, it's like, no, that's not how it works. So I don't know. Just be skeptical when reading your research. I guess that's the bottom line, is pay attention to studies. Learn how to do it. I mean, there are endless Google searches, like articles you could Google or YouTube videos, I'm sure, about learning how to interpret studies, learning how to research data. It's really not that difficult. And especially with like double-blind placebos, that's typically used with like drugs and things like that. But I mean, that's like the gold standard, essentially. You know, like meta-analysis, I like to read those because they basically take a huge pool of studies, they get a couple people, and then they compare studies and kind of create massive trends across all the studies in that particular field or topic, which I think is really interesting. And also, it's more data points, so that's always good. The more data points you have, the more likely your results are going to be accurate, and you're going to get a better feel for what is actually going on there. Instead of a million different theories, you can kind of narrow it down. So that's going to be the end of this video. I tried to make it quick. I know I tend to ramble, and of course I did again in this video, but let me know what you guys think. Definitely be sure to be on the lookout and make an announcement when that book drops. Buy that shit, definitely, and support, because, you know, Jordan's got to pay the bills. So I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace out.